Well, our very gracious hosts aboard the Kakki M are Mr. and Mrs. Bob Gillette. And you both have duties aboard. Of course, it's pretty obvious, Bob, that you're the captain, but what exactly do you do, Mrs. Gillette?
Well, I'm the stewardess and also the cook.
I think before we take a tour of the yacht and so on, I think we better find out just a little bit about her. Bob, where was she built and for whom?
Well, she was built in Seattle, Washington, and for Mr. Howard L. McGregor, Jr. of Rochester, Michigan. And it's built of wood. It's one of the largest wooden yachts built in the United States in quite a few years. There are larger steel yachts, of course. But Mr. McGregor had his other boat built there, and we were so satisfied with the design and the workmanship and the material that the Vic Frank Boat Company was able to get, why, we went right back to the same people.
Uh-huh. What is she made of, by the way?
She's made of yellow cedar. Sometimes it's called Alaska cedar from western British Columbia.
Mm-hmm.
And around the Vancouver area.
That's from top to bottom, eh?
Top to bottom.
And, of course, your teak quarterdeck, but that's pretty well routine anyway, isn't it?
Yes, the teak is rather goes with a yacht of this style. A yacht isn't a yacht without a teak deck.
I gather you both worked for Mr. McGregor for quite a while. Mrs. Gillette, who is Mr. McGregor? I'm sure we don't quite know down here.
He's the owner of National Twist Drill and Tool Company in Rochester, Michigan. He's not only the owner, but he's the president, and he's a very busy man.
I would imagine.
Yes, he is. And his wife is a very interesting person. She has... She doesn't do too much charity work, but she's pretty busy at home just the same. And they have a teenage daughter. She's, well, she'll be 20 this year. And she's going to college at Albion University.
And she's the one for whom the boat is named. They call her Kakki, do they?
Yes, she is named, well, she picked the name herself. When she was little, she couldn't say her name. It was Catherine. She called herself Kakki. And her grandfather gave her the nickname. She still got it.
Uh-huh. Well, how much of a sailor now are the McGregors? Here's the McGregor family, I should say. Do they make use of this thing?
Yes, they certainly do. The McGregors, as far as seamanship go, are the greatest sailors that you'll ever find any place.
Is that right?
Nothing bothers them. And they have used this ship already twice as much as they did the other one. Specifically, I think they are finally succeeding in getting Mr. McGregor to take a little time off from the business and slow down a little bit and enjoy this. And they all just love this ship.
I don't know how anybody else could do, how you could do anything else, Bob, as a matter of fact.
And that's one of the big alternate battles, is that if you can get your owners to like the ship, that's half the battle.
That's right.
So.
Are there very many entertainments aboard, that is, both when she's tied up and when she's at sea? And if there are, I presume that you're a pretty busy woman, Mrs. Gillette.
There are times, yes. We had, I think there were 94 guests for a cocktail party with the YPO in San Juan, Puerto Rico. And that was a big affair. Very truly it was.
Yes, well, now you surely would have had a little help.
The club came in, the Club Nautico came in and did the catering and the bartending. All I had to do is kind of double as hostess.
And how do you manage in this kind of company?
Very well. I
enjoyed
right? myself thoroughly.
We're going to have a look a little later, as I was saying, Bob, but what about some of the statistics now as regards the mechanical end of it? Air conditioning, this sort of thing.
We have 20 tons of air conditioning with electric heat incorporated and thermostats in the rooms, just like at home or in an office building. Mechanically, we have two 500-horse Caterpillar diesels, the D353s. We have two 60 kW Caterpillar generators. We are 99% electric.
Pretty well self-sustaining in the freshwater department, too.
Yes, right at the moment, we are making about 15 gallons of fresh water an hour down in the engine room. The appliances, we got away from the traditional built-in freezers and ice boxes that are so traditionally found on yachts, And we went to the store, and everything is, if I might use the expression, is store-bought. Refrigerators, freezers, dishwasher, washing machine, dryer, even a garbage disposal.
So I gather that the galley is rather a pleasant place to work, Mrs. Gillette.
Yes, it's more thoroughly equipped than most homes, I think.
I think I'd have to go along with that. Well, thank you very much for this part of it. Now I think we'd like to have a look around, if you wouldn't mind being our host.
I'd be glad to show you.
We'd have a look around. Thank you very much. First of all, I think, though, we'll start up on the bridge.
All right, fine.
Well, once again, we're locating ourselves on the bridge of the Kakki M, and like the rest of the boat, of course, she's beautifully appointed here, too. Bob, I guess you control pretty well everything from up here.
Yes, the engines are controlled, clutches, throttles, air conditioning, and electric heat is controlled from here, the bow thruster. We have an alarm system with 26 red lights in conjunction with a bell and a chime, that if anything goes wrong from low oil pressure to a flooded bilge, we have an alarm.
You know it in no time at all.
That is correct.
Did you ever see the program Star Trek?
Yes.
Well, the control console here looks exactly like that spaceship, I must say.
Well,
what have you got here? We'll take it from the port side and work starboard.
All right, over there is a communications receiver which has some leftover receiving crystals in it from the big radios. An omnigator, which we use the marine omnigator stations that are close to the shore for navigation. A ocean fathometer recording, goes 280 fathoms. And there's a speedometer, Loran, an automatic direction finder, and of course the radar is our pet instrument, invaluable. Another fathometer used for harbor work. It only goes to 80 feet. And then the throttles and clutches, the compass. Over here we have a VHF FM radio telephone and a loudhailer, wind instruments, the automatic pilot, and a single sideband radio. This is a radio that you can talk 10,000 miles with if conditions are right.
Well, Bob, that seems to be just about everything. There's very little information that you'd ever need that you couldn't get right here out of this console.
That is correct. We have everything grouped together here, and we're not chasing all around the pilot house like we used to in the other boats, and it's working very nicely.
Bob, what qualifications have you got?
Well, I'm licensed, of course, but I think my commercial fishing experience, where I learned small boat handling and learned seamanship as a matter of self-preservation, qualified me for the running of boats like this.
In Canada and the Commonwealth countries, there's a ticket system where you have master mariner and this sort of thing. The same thing apply in the United States?
Yes, the same thing applies in the United States.
But you're not a coastal navigator then, are you?
I do better coastwise than I do ocean-wise.
Then who doesn't, eh?
Right.
Well, I think we can probably move from here now, Bob, and we'll take ourselves off to the engine room.
Okay.
And I must say that I've heard of a great many engine rooms. The engineers are usually very fastidious people, and they always like to think that you could eat off the deck. Well, I quite agree that you could eat off the deck on this ship, because all you have to do now is supply the bacon and eggs, and here we are.
Well, I'll tell you a little secret. Sometimes I have to go down there in my white uniform. It better be clean.
And you better not come up greasy, eh?
Right.
Have you got an engine room crew here, Bob?
No, I'm the engineer. I do all the repair work that I can myself, and really it requires very little care.
And what number of crew have you got aboard, apart from your wife and yourself?
We have a mate and 2 deckhands. This is a total of 5 of us.
And what are their duties?
Well, they do about everything. When we're painting and varnishing, we all paint, we all varnish. They have to keep the ship clean outside. Once a week, normally, the ship gets a bath with soap and water, starting right up at the top, clear to the water line. And this keeps us looking real nice and yachty.
I'll say it does. Let's go back now. We'll leave the engine room, and we can go back and have a look at the main accommodation aft there. This, of course, is where the family hangs out when they're here on board.
Yes, the master stateroom and the other two staterooms are all done in oak. The rest of the ship is teak. The Kakkie's room and the guest room have been stained with a beechnut stain, and they left the master stateroom natural oak.
Well, I think we should have a look at the galley, because I'm sure there's a great deal of activity goes on there most of the time, that being, of course, your wife's domain, Bob, and I understand she had a hand in the designing, too.
Yes, between her and Mrs. McGregor, they did a real fine job. They had to play little checkers with the appliances to get them all in and where we could get at them. It's amply filled up, I'll say that.
Yes, well, I believe your wife said earlier on that there are very few modern kitchens that are any better done.
We think it's right up to date.
And you can do as much cooking here as for as many people as come aboard, eh?
Oh, yes.
Not a
She
problem.
has 2 ovens on the range and ample freezers, and it's very well equipped.
Well, I noticed when we were coming down, I think I noticed when we were coming down, Bob, a rather tattered but proud Nova Scotia flag. Is that right?
Well, there's a little story behind that flag. In 1962, when we were here at the Armdale Yacht Club with the other boat, they very graciously took that flag down off of their yard arm up there in the clubhouse yard and presented it to us. And we fly this flag only when we come into the Armdale Yacht Club here in Nova Scotia, and otherwise in Canada we fly the Canadian flag, and it is a special meaning for us for the graciousness of these people here. They're very, very kind, and some of the finest people we have ever run into.
Well, thank you very much, and I'm sure they'd be glad to hear that, Bob. Now, by the way, what's the destination from here?
From here, we will go through Port Hawkesbury and the Cancel Lock and on up to Gaspé. We had planned to stop at Gaspé a day or two. We have some friends there. And then to Quebec and Montreal. At Montreal, the McGregors will join us and finish the trip to Algonac.
Well, Bob, thank you very much for being such a very gracious host and having us aboard and allowing us to clutter up your very lovely yacht with all our wires and cables and microphones and so on. I hope we haven't disrupted things too much for you.
Not at all. It's been our pleasure. This is, shall we say, a first for us.
Oh, is it really?
Yes.
Well, we're delighted to have been first to have a look at the Kakki M. Thank you very much indeed. The best of luck to you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.